and also a storybook career at the Florida State University. Next time you go to the Tucker Center, look up in the rafters and you will see just what I am talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. George McCloud. Sir, first and foremost, I hope you and your family are well.
Everybody's well. Everybody's doing well. Got back from Tallahassee Sunday and just trying to relax and get back in the groove of things, school with my kids. Just having a good time.
Awesome. First and foremost, jersey retirements are the culmination of a career that is on another level. It's not for everybody. Take us back into the Tucker Center. I had the opportunity to cover that experience. And when you look up in the rafters and you see your jersey go up there forever in basketball royalty with the Knowles, take us into that experience.
Man, it's a dream come true. You know, not something I can honestly say I sought out to do. It's just something that kind of materialized as I got better. Um, you know, I my last 2 years, I knew I was doing something special. You know, I had a really good junior year, and I just got better my senior year, more confidence, and I knew I was one of the top players in the country. And at that time, I was really pursuing NBA dream, and Florida State just paved that way. Gave me the opportunity to showcase my talent, allowed me to play point guard, which I was drafted as a point guard. Played my first 4 years at point, and then I went to the 2, the 3. I played a little bit of 4 when I was in Phoenix. In my last 4 years in Denver, they moved me back to the point. So, you know, being a big guard, able to handle the ball, make plays, you know, it was a perfect opportunity fit for me.
Now, the story begins in Florida, Central Florida, Daytona. Take us back to your earliest memories of picking up that basketball and dribble driving and working on your handles, getting shots up, and beginning to play the game that you love and the game that loves you.
I would say it was at the YMCA. Hallmark Furniture was the first organized team I played for. David Henson was my head coach, and it was just a mutual love. I mean, I loved the game, and I felt the game loved me, and I was always good. I was always, you know, able to dribble the ball. I was always able to do things that even small guards would be like, man, you can handle the ball. You can shoot the ball. So I just worked on those two things more so than anything else. And one thing about me, I was a student of the game. And at one point, when I came home, even college and pro, I never shot the ball. We would go play, and they'll be like, "Gee, why aren't you shooting?" I would be like, "I know I can do that. I know I can shoot the ball. So I'll work on other things because I know I have to get better." And that's how I developed because I knew my strengths, I knew my weaknesses, and I just worked on my weaknesses more than I did my strength.
Mainland High School. Anybody who knows, once you hit the exit on the Interstate 4 and you come in and the International Speedway is there and the mall is across the street, as soon as you cross over the intersection and you look to your right, your high school is there and the gymnasium is there. And you got to be able to play and knock down shots if you hope to get out of there with a victory. Take us back into your high school and what that was like for you personally.
Man, it was great because I kind of was like a hidden gem, so to speak. My coach at one time, my junior year, called me the best kept secret in Central Florida because people didn't know about me. Um, so I came in and I caught everybody by surprise by how well I played, the versatility I had, and the passion in which I played with. And my 10th grade year, I played JV. My 11th grade year, I started on the varsity and was the leading scorer. Then my senior year, I took it to a whole nother level and averaged over 20 points. And, I was passing the ball, rebounding. I had a pretty complete game at that point. And then going into college, it was just like starting all over again. I didn't play much my first year, played a little bit my second year, and then my third year just jumped and blossomed into one of the country's best players. So it was just a microcosm of what I had been through as a high school player, and it just reinvented itself in college. And it kind of took off from there.
George, when you look back at your high school career, is there a signature game that stands out? Like, hey, I gave this team 30, or I came in and I did this, and ever since that day, even though there's always a backstory of the why and putting in work to get there, is there a game that you can look back at and say, on that particular game, that particular day or night, that's when it really started shifting to another level?
And I would have to say Seabreeze, a rival high school, in their gym. I had a really big game. I was on fire. I was making everything. And my confidence after that game just went through the roof because they had like 4 guys that could play Division I basketball. John Parks, who went to Florida State with me, but he played football. Probably one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen. Had Terry Johnson, who went to Stetson, really good friend of mine to this day. Another kid named Pat Johnson, Terry White, Darryl Robinson. They had a slew of guys. They beat us, but I single-handedly kept our team in the game and made the game competitive. And from there, my confidence just was at a whole nother level.
As we think about your high school career, what accolades stand out when you think about the success you had at your high school? And then we'll get into FSU, but is there anything you want to share with the general public about that particular part of your basketball career?
One thing I'll share, and it was a negative, but it kind of simplifies me. I went out for Team Florida, which I didn't make the team, but they had me playing the 5 with my back to the basket. And right, my mom played basketball, so she knew the game. So after the game, I see my mom walking on the court, and she's telling Coach Gibbs. She walked up to the coach and she said, "Hey, my son don't play with his back to the basket. My son faced the basket and play." And I was like, "Oh man, what you doing? Don't." And I don't know if that's the reason why I didn't make the team, but my mom came out and said that. And from that point, the one thing I'll say about that situation, the guys who made that Team Florida, and traveled, and I always said I was going to be better than those guys in college. And it was Tony Mack, my guy Irvin Thomas, who played with, who eventually transferred to Florida State. He was a player of the year. And that was something that lit a fuse because they were playing me out of position. They didn't get to see my skill set. And then my mom goes on the court and tells them that my son doesn't play with his back to the basket. My son faced the basket play. So that lit a fuse with me.
Florida State University, the 1972 team in the Final Fours, the Tucker Center, the Rafters, and several gentlemen were back over the weekend. I saw a lot of you guys. You look at, gentlemen in the Rafters, and I'll just throw out some random names. Yourself, George McCloud, Sam Cassell, the program, Bobby Sura, guys like, Charlie Ward, Mr. Cowens, and the list goes on, Coach Ham. Can you talk about Florida State and that process and how you got from Daytona onto campus in Tallahassee, right behind the state capitol?
Well, originally I had signed, well, I gave a handshake to go to Providence with Rick Pitino. They had a deep run with Donovan and what's the guard that played with Donovan?
Delray Brooks, or was it Brooks?
Yeah.
He was nice. He was nice.
Yeah. So they had that deep run, and I'll never forget. Coach Pitino came to my high school, and he said, "Look, I'm an old school guy. You shake my hand and make it. You commit to coming to Providence, and we have a deal." I shook his hand. It wasn't 2 weeks later he accepted the Knicks job, and that's why I didn't go to Providence. Then I opened it back up and took a visit to Florida State and made my decision to stay close to home, which was probably the best situation for me anyway, because I was a mama's boy, and being close to my family really helped me out and paid dividends in the long run.
George, when we think about crossovers and guys taking guys off the dribble, and Allen Iverson, even Michael Jordan in his day, when we think about that, the name that comes to mind out of Providence, the Friars, God Shamgod, was that gentleman, was he anywhere on the scene at that time? I'm just kind of curious as we think about the Friars basketball and what it could have been like if you had on that black and white jersey.
Well, Shamgod was younger than I was. He's about 4 years younger than I was. But, Providence recruited some really good players. Big East basketball was one of the top conferences in America at that time. And it would have been great to see, the one thing I would say, I don't know if I would have played point guard. So it was a blessing in disguise for me to stay at Florida State, because the person who told Coach Kennedy about me and my skill set was Pee Wee Barber. And Pee Wee Barber, man, when I tell you a guy who could play, I mean, Stevie Nash is my guy. I played with Stevie Nash, really good friends with Stevie Nash. He was a 2-time MVP. Stevie Nash wasn't Pee Wee Barber. I can tell you that. If you know anybody at Florida State who's seen Pee Wee Barber play, he was that dude. And Pee Wee went to Coach Kennedy and said, you need to play George at point. And that's how I moved to the point, because Pee Wee used to always speak up for me. It'll be games, and Pee Wee was a wild boy. He'll be like, put George in the effing game. Put George in the game. And he always spoke up for me. And, I told him just yesterday, I wrote him a message, and I said, Pee Wee, you instilled some inner self-belief in me that I don't think you even know. I mean, you set the bar so high, and I wanted to fill your shoes when you left. And that was one of my goals, because Pee Wee was, Metro first team. I mean, he used to give everybody the business, man. And I thanked him for that. He responded and said, you did it. Congratulations. You deserve it. And it was always things like that your teammates can really motivate you in a way that they don't know, in a way that sticks with you to give you that you need to get over the hump, and your game can take off just with being a good teammate. That's something I've always tried to do. I've always tried to be a good teammate and to support other guys, because it's a team game, and that's what it's all about.
And you just alluded to us. Take us back to the Metro. When you look at Memphis State, the University of Memphis, the Mid-South Coliseum, you look at, I covered the Grizzlies in the Pyramid, the Shane Battier era. Powell was think he might have been in his second campaign. But when you look at the Metro and Louisville, the rivalry with FSU, and some of the guys that played there, the McCrays and Coach Denny Crum, and you look at Milt Wagner and guys that you competed against. Take us back to the Metro, and again, when the ball was tipped off, guys had to get back on defense and guys had to play the game at a high level.
Absolutely. Metro was super tough, man. A lot of big names, a lot of guys who flat out play. And it was big time basketball. You know, we played against North Carolina my freshman year in the D Dome. And it was at such a high level at that point. I wasn't ready my freshman year. And just play against Kenny Smith and Brad Doherty, guys who went on to be, successful NBA players. Brad was for the first pick when he came out. So Kenny Smith, I remember Kenny did the walk-off dunk behind his head and ran in the locker room. And I was just like, oh my God. So it was games like that and players on that level that really let you know, hey, I got some work to do, and then when you got to that level, you tried to maintain it and even elevate beyond where I was as a junior. I knew I had to get better my senior year, which I did. I increased my scoring, I increased my 3-point shots made, I increased my rebounding, just overall game. And that's what the Metro taught you because you had, Purvis Ellison was in the conference. He was the #1 pick the year we came out. And I was the player of the year in the Metro. So it was that level of competition every night. You had Bimbo Cole, you had Dale Curry, like you said, you had Milt, you had, at Memphis State, it was always tough. South Carolina, it was a lot of tough teams and it got you ready, got me ready for the pro game. And the thing I always said is that I always played in front of 15, 16,000 people. So getting to the pros, I was used to playing in front of big crowds. So it wasn't that big of an adjustment for me. The biggest adjustment is the speed of the game. The speed of the game in the NBA is night and day to college. And it was just a fun time. You got a chance to play with guys you saw on TV, Reggie Miller, Chuck Person, guys who I'm friends with to this day. And it was just great seeing how they work, becoming a pro, because you have to become a pro. You have to become a pro. You have to know how to push yourself, how to work in the off season, work alone by yourself, how to eat, and it's constantly not getting in trouble, not hanging around the wrong crew. So it's a lot of variables that go in there, and it's a lot of support you need to get you through that learning curve. And I had that. So I was blessed.
Hey, George, how challenging is it when you're blessed, you're a young man, and you have money in your pockets, so to speak? You could buy anything you want. You can eat anything you want. You can pretty much drive any car you want. There's beautiful women. There's all these different resources at your fingertips. And then there's all these people that are everywhere you go. I would say people are happy to see you. What's it like to experience that?
It's an out-of-body experience because you never envision yourself being that person. But it's also a situation where it's wolves out there, and they'll come for you if you're not guarded, if you don't have the right support around you. You really have to surround yourself with a group that have your best interests at heart. It was always my family. always guys who were older than me. Derek Harper, Florida boy, is that's my man. And he taught me a lot of things um, that is still part of my everyday regimen now. How to be a pro. I mean, we used to go, when I was in Dallas, we used to go before practice and we called it 10, 10, 10, then 20, 20, 20, then 30, 30, 30. So what it is, we would run 10 hundreds, 10 one times around, 10 stadiums, and then we'll increase it 20, and then we go to 30, and then we would go eat breakfast, then we would go play. So we did all of that before we even went to play. So I was always ready. And I always carried that, as I got older. And I knew what I seen guys like Derek do who was successful. And I tried to do the same thing with young guys. Tony Bobbitt from Florida. When I would come home in the summer, I would go get Tony. He would stay at my house. And I would take him to the bridge. We would run hills. And I just tried to teach him how to get your body ready, how demanding the game was, and how serious you had to be about something you love, and that's this game of basketball. So Tony will tell you, I pushed him and gave him that dedication he needed as a young guy. Tony had been through a lot of things, tough-minded, really good player, and I just tried to help. And we had a lot of guys. Vince went to my high school. My little brother was a really good player. Michael Polite, who played with me at Mainland and at Florida State. Tim Pickett, who also went to Florida State, from Daytona. So it was a lot of guys who were coming out, and I was the first one. So I was always trying to give back and help and be around. I never got to the pros and thought I wasn't good enough to go here. People used to see me the same place they did. I just carried myself a little different. I always watched and, checked out my surroundings. But that's me. That's how I wrote.
Signature game at Florida State University. Take us back to a memorable moment, if you will.
And I have a lot of memories, but I think I won back-to-back games at the buzzer in Virginia Tech and South Carolina. And when you every year you have a new young guy coming in who try to knock you off the pedestal. And the Dozier twins from Baltimore was, highly touted, highly recruited. And I used to always say when I would have to play against guys like that if I'm about to give them the business, they don't know. I mean, I used to always say guys aren't doing what I'm doing. When I would go run, even I was like, there's nobody doing what I'm doing. And that's the way I used to tell myself to motivate myself when I'm running, when I'm working out. And that's how I went about the game. And they knew I was going to come at them because I learned that from Pee Wee, seeing him every day. And it just gave me more confidence and more nastiness, and just my overall approach to the game is different.
George, now when you leave Florida State University and you're transitioning into the National Basketball Association, many guys go through the Chicago pre-draft camps and in preparation to be drafted. Can you talk about, in between FSU and your draft day experience?
Yeah, that's mandatory. So you have to go through that educational part that the league provides, which is vital. They bring in different props and make you see different things that may and may not happen to you, but it's out there. So it's like, be aware of your surroundings. Keep your circle small. So, the NBA does a really good job of that, and guys should really take that serious. Guys are really taking it a lot more serious now than it was when I came out. Cell phones and Twitter and all these Facebook. You have to be careful. Um, but for the most part, the NBA is just it's a man's league, man. You can't prepare to just wake up after you sign your contract and have thousands of dollars every day. You have 4 hours of work and 20 hours where you can go do what you want to do. So it's a lot of temptations. Um, People really have to be careful because you can pick up some bad habits and the game will excuse you. If you're not careful, the game will excuse you and you'll be out of the league. So you just have to surround yourself with good people and stay prayed up and focused and just leave it all on the court.
With the 7th pick in the first round of the 1989 NBA draft, the Indiana Pacers select George McCloud from the Florida State University. When you hear that and you relive that, take us back to that experience, what that was like and how special it was for you, all the guys that you played against growing up, your family, anybody who was ever a part of your life as you worked your way up to that point. How special was it to be on your way to Market Square Arena?
It was extremely special, but I think it was more special for me that I was able to do things for my family. Like I said from the beginning, I was mama's boy. My pops was really tight, and to be able to support them the way they've supported me my entire life that's what it was all about for me. And when I relive it, it's good and bad in it because I lost my mom after my second year. Actually, my first year, going into the second half of my first year. And I lost my dad 4 months later. So I never forget my first year, I'm leading the league in 3-point shooting at All-Star break. And they didn't invite me to the 3-point contest. So my mom was like, hey, don't worry about it. Just come home. Just come home and hang with the family, get away from the game a little bit. And, I'm like, that's the year they took Jordan. Jordan was in the 3-point contest. I mean, how could you be mad that the NBA took Jordan? So, but I was more disappointed that for the first time, a guy who was leading the league in 3-point field goal percentage didn't get invited. So it was a blessing in disguise because I got a chance to see my mom because she passed away the day I went back to play right after All-Star break. I'm cutting. Now I was a barber. I could cut hair, and I was cutting Chuck Person hair. And my sister called me and told me that my mom had passed. So for me, like I said, it's good and bad in that because I lost the most important person in my life, but it also made me grow up and just be. I was a dog after that. I used to get in fights. I was mad at the world. Didn't think it really affected me, but looking back, I see how it really affected me. Then I was hurt. I had to have reconstructive surgery on my left ankle, reconstructive surgery on my right ankle to get my third year. So really, the only year I played healthy was my 4th year, and I went through a lot of stuff, and I never made any excuses. I never said, my parents. I never said my injuries. I just kept it all within, and it made me the person that I am and the player I eventually became. My fifth year, I was second in most improved player in the league. Had a breakout year, and that really set a different focus for me after all that happened. And I became a man, very early from all that, those tragedies and my, personal experiences with my injuries. Knock on wood, I was never hurt after my fourth year. I never had any knees or, any backs, anything like that. Just, nagging injuries that everybody get, thigh contusions, ankle twisted ankles, stuff like that. But from there, I just kind of played the game I loved and viewed it in a different way. It wasn't all about the game. It's more about, life, and I enjoyed myself.
Okay, now we get into international basketball, 93, 94. Talk to us about that particular experience, going away from being stateside, and you get an opportunity to take that basketball and it takes you around the world, so to speak. What was it like to play international ball where you only may have two Americans on a roster, different language, different culture, different weather, different food? What was it like to experience something like that?
It was different at first because my off the court tragedies just took my love for the game away, and I was lost. I mean, I was young, um, mad at the world, like I said, and always still knew I wanted to play ball, but really lost focus. And going to Italy at that time, the money was great. As a matter of fact, they were paying just as much money in Europe, in Italy, as they were in the NBA. Um, Played with Dean Garrett, who eventually came back, and we both, signed nice deals in the NBA. But it was, I always say European was easy money, bad basketball. You know, you can get over there, and when you come back to the league, it's not that way. The game is so different. It's one game a week. If you're in the cup, you maybe 2 games a week. A lot of rest. Like you said, the food is different. They don't go to the grocery store and shop for the week or for 3 or 4 days. It's every day you go to the market. Um, Everything is fresh. They're crazy about basketball. I'll tell you that. You have to, at games, they put you in those enclosures like when you're waiting for the city bus, because they be throwing batteries and drum paddles and coins and everything. So, but it's like if the American score 50 points and you lose, it's all your fault. If you win and you score 6 points, you get all the credit. So it's actually was more pressure in Europe than it was in the NBA because you had to win. You don't win, they'll replace you in a minute. So at the end, I really started to enjoy it. I started learning the language. I started appreciating being away, wanting to get back to the league, and it just drove me. And went to Dallas, and it kind of just took off from there. Played with Jason Kidd, who's one of my better friends to this day, and played really well. We played really well together. I came back looking to shoot the ball more when I got back, and that's what I did.
Continental Basketball Association, Rapid City Thrillers. what's it like to play in the CBA where guys are hungry and they want to get to the NBA?
Well, for me, it was different because I went down there to show I still wanted to play. I still had the desire, and I'm competitive, so I wanted to be the best player in the CBA, which I was. I was one of the top players there, and for me, it was really cool because I ended up playing with Tony Dawson, guy that I played with in college. So there was some familiarity there, brotherhood. Dawson and I are friends to this day, and it made it a lot easier. Um, but you know, you can't go to Europe, you can't go to the CBA thinking, man, I was in the NBA, I'm this, I'm that. You got to stay focused. A lot of guys don't make it in Europe. It's not because they can't play, it's because they thinking about being in the NBA. You got to control whatever at that point. You control Europe if you're there, or you control your situation in the CBA or wherever you are. You can't be thinking I should be here because you're not focused if you're at that point. And that's how I tried to go about it. I stayed focused and knew there was a bigger picture, and the task was to get back to the league and to show that I've grown up and that I'm a different player. And that's what I did.
And you alluded to it earlier, Big D, the Dallas Mavericks, Reunion Arena. You look at the brand new arena that was put in, American Airlines. You look at the green building downtown. You look at a beautiful atmosphere, a great place with passionate fans, and they love the Cowboys and Prime and the guys, the playmaker. Take us into Dallas, and you talked about Jason Kidd and Harper, and you know, it's a proud organization, and we remember Sam Perkins and Mark Aguirre and a lot of guys that Rolando Blackman. A lot of guys played there, and that's always a special place. I mean, and Dirk was able to bring home a chip. Take us into Dallas and how special that episode is.
That was the beginning for me. You know, I came back a different player, came back a different person, more mature. Um, playing with Jason, Jimmy, Mash. You know, the man on that team was my guy. He's no longer with us, but Roy Tarkin. Roy and I instantly bonded. I hung out with Roy a lot, and he was a beast, man. Could do everything on a basketball court. Had the biggest heart, but he had, you know, the drug situation just was overbearing for him. And that's what I mean when I say you have to surround yourself around good people who care about you. And I love that brother. I know he felt the same way about me. And we played great together. And that was a special time. We were exciting. We weren't winning a lot of games, but playing with Jason as a rookie, man, you're talking about energetic, enthused, passion. I never quit attitude. We were always in games. Prime and I was my man from college, so he was there, and they used to come to our games. We used to go to the Cowboy games. It was just a wild, crazy, fun time that you know I benefited from, and that just got me, you know, a stable point in my career to where they say, okay, McCloud can play. McCloud is mature. McCloud is, you know, focused. You know, it all came together for me.
Now, at the collegiate level, you look at maybe 35 games. when you get to the NBA, I say 100 games because we know that there's 82 games during the season, but you tack on preseason and training camp, and then if you're fortunate, you tack on the playoffs. So what's it like to go from those two extremes? And then you look at traveling, weather patterns. You know, one day you're in Phoenix and it's over 100 degrees with heat index, and then you fly into Philly or you fly into, you know, Chicago and it's cold. Take us into those different time zones, those different situations. But when you get there, if that other team is rested, they're waiting on you, and you know they want to try to give you guys a get business, but you got to go in and try to take their crowd out of it. Take us into the differences in the two types of situations.
And you've got to throw in there, when I first came in the league, my first 2 years, we were flying commercial. So you having to get up early in the morning, get to the airport. And when you're a rookie, you got to carry bags and help unload the bus and go and get donuts and newspaper for guys. It was a trying time, but you know, those guys had been through it. So, you know, my rookie year, it was just, that's my rook. That's my vet. So it was part of the league. Not so much anymore, but that initiation was there, and it was fun sometimes. But sometimes you're mad and mad at everybody on the team. And but you're right. You know, flying from California back home if you're in Indiana and it's warm out there and freak. Tell you one thing that happened to me when my rookie year. We leave Indiana and we go on the road. I'm from Florida. I don't know anything about having the water drip or keeping the heater on. I wasn't thinking that. I get back to Indy, it's freezing in my house. I turn on the heater. I will never forget. I got in the bed and I balled up in a blanket, 3 or 4 blankets, and I stayed in one spot. But when I was walking around in my house, I didn't have my shoes on, and I got frostbite. My my feet was on fire. I called my mom and said, "Hey, I don't know what's going on. My feet are burning." And then I called a trainer. He said, "George, were you walking around in your house?" I was like, "Yeah." Ice in the commode, just a block of ice. Kid flushed the toilet. I was like by myself at the time. I was in that by myself. I couldn't believe I was like, "Yo, what am I doing?" I mean, that was a time that I was just like, I was lost. I mean, I didn't know what was going on. But those are times that you cherish later on when you can go back and reminisce about things like that, as well as being a rookie flying to LA and playing against Magic, or coming back to New York playing against Patrick, and then going to Houston. And I mean, all of the guys I used to watch, and now I'm on the court sharing the court with them. And during the game, you find yourself staring like, I can't believe I'm playing with these guys. So that was something that even Jay Kidd, I never forget when Jay Kidd was a rookie, he was looking at